All right, episode 204, the Strongfit podcast.
We did it again.
Yes, we did. So, we were supposed to talk about masculine versus feminine, but I had, in the past, a lot of people asking me to define Strongfit. So I still cannot do that, but I can at least explain to you what the idea behind it is, because that is something I want to relate to something I've seen happening in the world, in a nerd world that is my world, since I'm such a big nerd, right? That touches me a lot because it happens to be about something I cared deeply about, and that letting it go, as unfortunate as it is. I'll explain. So, there is a saying, an old saying that goes, give a man a fish and you will feed him for the day. Teach him how to fish and you will feed him forever. You will feed him for life, right? So, this is the idea of constraints versus objectives, right? That I talked about so many times. It's equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome. That's really what that conversation is. And in many ways, what I would like for Strongfit to be, or at least for people to understand about Strongfit, that Strongfit is about equality of opportunity. What I am trying to do is I'm trying to explain complex systems, complex ideas, and make them understandable to you guys so that you can apply it to your life, your training, your business. That is really what I'm trying to do. Right. I am trying to level out the field. I am trying to get ideas that usually stay within a certain stratosphere of thinkers, ideas that do not come down to the level of peasants that you're all part of.
Peasant is not an insult.
I was being so nice. I was being nice. Yeah.
Fully proud of it.
Anyway, I was being nice. But
you're so French sometimes. The arrogance.
Actually, I'm not French. I'm double arrogant because I'm French and blue blood. So that makes me double arrogant. So exactly. And so as my tattoos right there, you guys know that this tattoo by my left ear is actually the armoire of my family. It's this is on the plates.
Which basically means that my grandparents used to work for your grandparents.
Oh no, my grandparents used to own your grandparents. Anyway, great grandparents, but that's past the point.
Around.
Yeah, exactly. We had that on the plates at the castle of my family in the south of France.
You're fancy.
The castle of Oraison.
You have two last names. You're bougie.
Actually, no, that's not where the two last names came from. Like the
I know, but it sounds bougie.
All right. My family, on my mother's side, had the castle of Oraison, which interestingly is where Pasteur did all his work, in my family's castle. I'm just saying, I'm not making this shit up. It is true. You can look up where Pasteur did his work, you'll see. It's the castle of Oraison, which is my family's castle. Back then, we lost it, obviously, but back then it was.
When did you guys lose it?
World War II-ish.
Oh, yeah.
It's that generation.
Then everything changed, right?
No, actually, no. It's way later than that, because I remember, no, you know what, they sold it when I was a kid.
Really? It's not even that long ago.
Yeah. No, it's on the other side that they lost money around my grandfather's. So like in the 50s, 60s, whereas on my mother's side, they lost the castle, they sell it when I was a kid. So they probably sold it like 30 years ago.
Yeah, but you have royal, you have like blue blood on your mother's and on your father's side,
Yeah,
right?
It's noble on both sides. So I'm triple arrogant. Anyway, yeah, so this was on the plates in the castle.
So
and everything.
You know what my family had? A barn.
A barn, yeah. No, you had a farm.
A farm.
And then your grandparents and your great-grandparents and your great-grandparents before that too. So they all had a farm. Yeah, they had pigs and chickens. That's great. Anyway.
You're all above us.
Is that a question?
Okay, let's get back to the subject
anyway.
This is turning sideways.
Not at all. It's like, I didn't know there was a question there. What do you mean?
Oh my goodness.
Right, by the way, for the story, there are lines on my tattoos that are horizontal is because turns out those lines are a mark of shame in those type of things. That means that there's someone in the family whose, birth was a little bit, might have been illegitimate. So there is a bastard somewhere in the family, hence the lines on the armoire. Well, there's a guy like me who decided to have a kid with a peasant. So there you go. So I'm saying I'm continuing the family tradition. So I am still within my blood, so it's all good. Anyway, where was I? Right. So I'm thinking
the world is coming to an end. That's where we were.
Nah, no, noble people have done
No, I mean the world of nerds. That's where we were.
No, that's not where I'm at. And by the way, like, did you notice like all Disney movies were about a prince who got to a lesser woman, but she was very pretty? I'm just saying. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying Disney movies are about that. I'm saying Disney movies about. Well, technically, Snow White is a princess. To start with, Cinderella, it was a noble woman who was kind of downgraded a bit. But as Disney went further and further, I'm talking about Disney movies. I'm not talking about us.
Honey, I was
Why do you make it everything about you?
I was saying that was not a long time ago. Your birth was a long time ago. So let's just move on.
You're making this about you when I was just talking about Disney.
Julian.
Why am I talking about Disney? Because that's going to come in very closely. Anyway, so I'm taking those complex ideas and bringing them to you peasants. So, for example, the free energy principle and stuff like that are not things that are commonly talked about, mostly because no one understands them correctly, and they don't want to look like fools on podcasts. I don't have that problem, so that's why I talk about them. But, so the idea for me was allowing you to have a greater opportunity to learn. That's really, I'm a teacher at heart, and that's really what my interest was. And to understand the difference between equal opportunity versus outcome, I think Albert Einstein is a great example of that. So Albert Einstein, I don't think people understand the genius that he was. So he was a clerk at a patent firm in Zurich. He's 24 years old and has been denied a seat as a teacher because he doesn't have the credentials for it, right? What he has is he has one of the greatest intelligence we've ever seen. But what he also has is the opportunity to develop that intelligence because of the culture he's from. He's Jewish. And in that culture, there is a great amount of work done on studying and, from an early age and just, improving your intelligence and making it work. So we can discuss a lot about IQ versus intelligence. Anyway, the Jewish culture has pushed literary intelligence very far, reading and all that stuff. So in that sense, Einstein had a great opportunity that his intelligence had a base he could develop from. Yeah. You have to understand that at the time in Germany, physics is dominated by the Jewish Germans, which is why Germany lost its science after World War II because he kicked all the Jews out of Germany, which is basically, here goes biology and physics. Mathematics and physics, which is gone. A few biologists left, but when it came to physics and mathematics, they were all Jews. So they kicked them out, and there's a problem. But, in today's world with the patriarchy and stuff like that, people have to understand Einstein, when he came up with a theory of general relativity, that was called Jew physics at the time. People forget, but he got blasted for putting it out there, to the point where the German physicist got into a bunch of 100 to write a book to say his theory is shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
so
true.
now we have to understand, again, at the time he's a patent clerk in Zurich.
So he was basically...
He's 24 years old.
His job was literally writing forms,
He was an accountant.
Yeah, basically.
Right? He was even actually more boring than being an accountant. He was just filing paperwork. Yeah. He's a bureaucrat.
Yeah.
And that gives him a lot of free way to look outside the window and let his mind wander and come up with a way that changed the way we look at the universe. It's not about E equals MC squared. It changed the way we look at the universe. There's really people like that amongst humanity that have changed the course of humanity. There's not that many. You have Isaac Newton, you have people like that, and you have Albert Einstein. He changed the way physics worked. One of the greatest minds we've ever had. But he's not in a university somewhere surrounded by brilliant minds challenging him and fostering his intelligence, trying to push him forward or whatever. What he had was he had a great culture behind him and a great intelligence. And the two together produced something that changed humanity forever.
One guy, though. One guy.
One guy. That's actually how science works. But was that equality of outcome? Fuck no. Was he given the opportunities to be as glorious as he was? No, he wasn't. On the contrary, when he came out with the theory of general relativity, that was called Jew physics by a very prominent German scientist, physicist at the time. Can't remember if it was Heidegger, but He was blasted out of oblivion. In today's world, you can imagine what people would say about that.
Yeah.
Was that racist? I don't know if you can call Jews a race since he was German. But anyway, was that anti-Semitic? Fuck yeah, he was.
Yeah.
But it was not just that. It was because he's 24 and he's not a teacher. So it's there's a class thing there. There's an anti-Semitic there. There's a number of things political at the time. 1920. Yeah. I mean. Way before that at the time, but you know what I mean. Like he's starting to get a bit iffy anyway in Germany. So, and yet he came out with it, kept on pumping the math and everything until he came with theories that changed the entire world. So there's a difference.
People were telling him that he was wrong all the time.
And actually worked actively toward burying his theories. Like so, there is a difference between outcome and opportunity. He had the opportunity. They didn't give him the outcome. Right. They didn't give him a fish. They taught him how to fish. That's what his culture did. His culture taught him how to fish. And then he took his gift toward fishing and became the greatest fisherman there was. Yeah. And that's what I believe is the correct way.
Yeah.
And that's what I want Strongfit to be, is I want it to be a way that allows you to take complex ideas in a practical way, not always, in order for you to use them toward training life and business.
Yeah, but even if you see how they're always in a sort of practical way, because like even the more complex ideas, you can apply them at least like some. Yeah,
sometimes not enough. Which is why I'm working on the modular system. It'll be a way for people to be able to apply all the ideas that I talk about into a specific way and see how it works. Because I had a lot of people when we came about, men versus women or the Q and everything, that said, "Oh, Julian changed everything again." And actually, that's not true. I didn't change anything with the new programming that you see on the template. This is just a furthering of the same idea that I'm taking a little bit further in a little bit more complex way so that you can apply them more in a more practical way. So every time I go a little bit more practical, because I am always fighting that very thin line between outcome and opportunity. I want to give you the opportunities. The outcome is something else. So sometimes I have to show the outcome just so that you can work a bit harder toward the opportunity. So, but there is a fine line there that I find.
You can't not just give like the end result like a present to everyone for them. Like they need to understand a little bit where it came from, how it is.
I believe,
and that you can't just sell a program without having any type of, you know what I mean? Like that's not what Strongfit is. So I do think that people need to develop, and in that development of understanding that theory, they find new stuff about themselves and whatever. So it's extremely important.
That is my hope. So why do I think this is so important? Well, I'm going to give you the other example of outcome versus opportunity. So there is a war going on right now, and a war that we're losing actually, where I don't know if you've been paying attention, but like I talk about Marvel and the Star Wars and Star Trek a lot, because those are the heroes I grew up worshipping. I grew up without a father figure. My father figure was my older brother, who was 18 years older than me, who was a drug addict, hurting himself constantly, up to the point where he committed suicide when I was 20. He was my father figure because my father was a weak man who just spent the last part. So when did he meet her? Like his fourth wife, sorry. Fourth, I can't remember. Well, he met her when I was like 10, 11, and then he, at the time my brother was there, and he just abandoned us to go with her because he didn't want to be alone, because he was 65 at the time, and told us straight up he didn't want to be alone. Was he 65? No, he was less than that. He was 55, 58, something like that at the time. Mm-hmm. Got me late, and decided like that was his last chance at a wife, so he went with that. And he very proudly said many times he raised the kids that were not his own. Just to give you a background as to where I'm at that age.
It infuriates you so much what happened, because it's.
No, my brother died in the condition you would not wish on your worst enemy on top of it.
Exactly. You got so much of that father figure in the comic books. That's why.
Right, so that's why, like, I did not have a father figure in that sense, my only being my brother, who gave me the greatest gift of all, which is the opportunity of intelligence. So I was very blessed in that aspect. When it comes to strong father figures, I did not have any. My brother, as much as I love him to this day, had his own flaws, namely drugs, alcohol, hurting himself, like stuff like that. So I was looking for someone to teach me values. Right, what are the values necessary for men to move forward in life? And I found them in comic books, because those were people who never quit, who were strong, right, and who were willing to die for their ideas.
Right.
I found the same heroes in books, Dune, like stuff like that. So I grew up reading a lot. I'm a big reader anyway. But I was always fascinated by science fiction, stuff like that, because the ideas are so great. And the comic books were the same thing. They were about men that would just never give up, fight. They were fighting for their ideals and willing to die for them.
Yeah.
That, they had values. They had certain ideas toward morals, but most importantly, they refused to let the world be as it is, and instead were trying to fight to get it as a better version. And for me, that was extremely important, because I refused to think that the world would always be what it was for me at the time. I was getting pummeled, abused on one side by my mother. I was getting abandoned by my father and being raised by my brother. And the only positive figure I had in my life really was my grandmother, thank goodness for her. But it was not the cleanest of childhood. So the comic books where I thought values. I know it's very sad to say it like that, but that's true. And
no, it's not sad at all. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Humanity has always communicated through stories,
right.
Hieroglyphs, like always. And comic books have been a form of stories toward those types of things since the inception in the 60s, 70s. So I was born in 1973, and I had actually the first Spider-Man sold in France. It was 1973, I remember. It was the first Spider-Man written in French, sold in France, and I had it at some point, which would be worth so much money today. Anyway, that was all thrown away. I had 20 years of comic books thrown away. All the originals. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I kid you not. Anyway.
But you also read like Nietzsche by the time you were 18,
right.
and
yes.
you were...
Freud. Nietzsche, no, not all of Nietzsche, but Freud by the time I was 18, yeah. Nietzsche took it a bit longer. But the key with all this is like a Wolverine, people like that were willing to fight for their thing, which is what exactly I was lacking. I was lacking a father figure willing to fight for me.
Yeah.
And I was left with my mother because they were all scared of her, stuff like that. So suddenly, here were men willing to die to save the world. And that meant something to me. Yeah. Maybe too much, probably too much, but it meant something to me. And so, and I'm a nerd at heart anyway, right? So now I'm going to get to Star Wars. Why does Star Wars matter so much to me? Because first of all, it's an amazing... Maybe Return of the Jedi is not the best movie ever, but I think The Empire Strikes Back is one of the greatest science fiction movie ever made, if not the greatest science fiction movie ever made. The whole thing is just great. So the Star Wars trilogy was amazing, but you have to understand what it meant to me. First of all, I've seen that trilogy, I kid you not, about 30 times. Each movie, at least 30 times. I know every second of it and everything, but I will always remember I'm not old. The third one came out, so it's 1998 is the second one, so it's 81, right? So it comes out, it's probably in 82. So I'm 9 years old, 10 years old, something like that. And I'm gonna go see all three movies back to back with my brother. So we start at 8, we finish at midnight. 6 hours of Star Wars. Oh my God, that was with Coca-Cola in between and everything. That was the most amazing thing. I got out of the movie theater and I was wondering why cars had wheels. How come they were not flying around and everything? Imagine 6 hours, I'm 10. My father let me sleep late because it was such a big thing. And I go there with my brother. Yes. And I remember this to this day so precisely, right? It was just one of those moments, man. And so Star Wars has a deep, is a deep thing for me. And then from there, I read, of course, all the books about Star Wars and all that shit. So I'm a massive nerd, right? And there is a war going on against the nerd culture. Like, I don't know if you guys been watching the Marvel books and everything, but I'm going to explain a little bit what's been happening lately. Is if you look, it seems that Disney has taken main characters that were very, very famous and had a lot of fans behind them, and one by one has destroyed them in order to build up another character no one seems to care about. So what do I mean by that? You've seen that in Marvel, for example, with, they killed Tony Stark, they killed Steve Rogers. Now they're going to take Thor and make it into a joke so that they can prop up women Thor. They've been doing that again and again. And in the Star Wars stuff, they took Luke Skywalker and made it into a joke so that they could kill him to build up Rey. No one cares about Rey. Like, I mean, to this day, no one cares. Like, she's gone. Like, no one remembers her or whatever. They did that to Han Solo. They took one of the greatest bad guy, good guy that ever existed in, the nerd culture and made it into a weak man who gets killed off by his own son just so that they can, again, pop off. Now, you could argue that also because he's an older white man and they have to go away, which is what I'm getting to. And the latest show that they're doing is called Obi-Wan. So Obi-Wan, because I'm sure you don't know, means Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was a general, is a Jedi master, obviously, but he was a general, not that you know what it is, but he was a general in the Rebel Alliance, and he pretty much raised Luke, or at least watched over Luke, until he was in time to take him to the Death Star. He dies fighting Darth Vader and everything. Obi-Wan Kenobi is major stuff. So they make a show about him. Very important character. And in the show, they turn him into a weak old man, not even in touch with the Force anymore, who's basically a joke that they are destroying just to prop up another woke character. I say woke because it's a black woman that is supposed to be stronger than Darth Vader, which is a fucking joke. Now, I don't care that it's a black woman. I don't care if he was a white man. First of all, no one is stronger than Darth Vader, because if someone is stronger than Darth Vader, the whole movie makes no sense. The entire world of Star Wars doesn't make sense anymore.
I was going to say, that's kind of the thing, right? And like, I'm not...
It is the thing. Darth Vader is Darth Vader. You don't mess with Darth Vader. So anybody who's supposed to be stronger than me, I'd be like, fuck off. You're just not understanding the lore of the stuff. Okay, stop. But the key, what pisses me off with this is not, again, and I wish the actress to do very well in general and everything, but the point is, it's called Obi-Wan. It's a show about Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it turns out Obi-Wan Kenobi is not going to be in it because they're trying to bring that character named Reza. Then make a show about her and let's see if it works. But there is no reason to take Obi-Wan and to make sure that he's not outshines her, making it into a pathetic old man, not even in touch with the Force anymore.
Well, I feel like with a lot of movies in general, especially with those type, is that they try to make it into a political statement, even though that's not what that is. You know what I mean? Like,
right. So that's what they're all talking about representation and inclusion and everything. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think they're trying to make a political statement. I think there's a deeper thing at play.
I think that genre, or at least, like, let me say, the nerd world was from the beginning very inclusive, right?
Always.
They always had all types of nationalities, all types
of
religions.
They were the earliest one to do it. Yeah.
Colors, even like to blue,
green.
It didn't matter, and it was about the values.
By the way,
always,
Lando
right?
Calrissian is black in the original Star Wars.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it was always about the values and the story, and I think it was made also to inspire a lot of people and kids.
Well, if you look,
in that sense,
the X-Men, Colossus is Russian. By the way, this is 1970, so we're talking Cold War.
Yeah.
Colossus is Russian. Diablo is German. Wolverine is Canadian. One of the toughest ones, Jean Grey, is a woman. Storm is African from Kenya. And the most badass X-woman, whatever we want to call it, that ever lived. Why don't you make a show about her?
Right.
How come they're not doing that? And that's going to be my point. So for the longest time, the nerd culture was laughed at. Yeah, you remember you bullied the nerds in high school, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
You exposing me like this?
That's
I
not
was
true.
never a bully.
Yeah, sure.
I love everyone.
Yeah, except nerds.
I
So
am
the nerd
women.
culture was made fun of for the longest time, for good reasons, by the
Right.
way, because we are nerds. So they couldn't make fun of me because I'm too big, but I'm still, like, let's be honest, like the nerd culture was
No.
easy to make fun of. Yes,
No.
yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly, right? You were not going to get a prom school date by being a nerd. Let me put it this way, back then.
I'm not saying like nothing's changed, right?
Things have changed. You know why? Because Iron Man.
Right.
Iron Man got on board, Jon Favreau directed it, right? Robert Downey Jr. made a masterful job about Iron Man, and the Marvel started a revolution toward the nerd culture. So don't get me wrong, there was always Star Wars before that, because Star Wars was the biggest thing. But then when they did the prequel, a lot of fans were pissed and stuff like that. So there was a big business. So I guess it really started with Star Wars, let's be honest. But then Iron Man comes about and then blows the industry wide open with Marvel, because then suddenly makes a lot of money, but more importantly, it's a great movie. And then they try 2 and 3, they don't make it that well, but then they open the
more
door.
mainstream, right? If people find
Right.
it more cool.
Suddenly, a
That's
superhero
it.
movie can be cool. And then he opens up the door to
Right.
Marvel. And Marvel starts to make some really good movies, and the stuff takes out. Right, so now there's a shit ton of money to be made with nerd culture, and then they all realize we have a lot of scripts ready to go, a lot of heroes already made and everything, and then they start to understand that we have 50 years of good stories to pillage. Woke stories, because there's blue women, there's green men, there was already gay characters
And-
in the comic books.
And the most loyal
Fan base that
you will
exists.
find, right?
Exactly.
Like,
So you can
there's-
make so much
I was
money.
going to say,
Right.
because every one of that, like the OG fans, will see any movie and buy the merch, and
Right.
like they will love it no matter
Right,
what.
no matter.
right?
Well, turns out
Not-
no matter what.
Exactly,
Because
that's
there
what
is a
I
war
understand.
going on right now, which was what I'm referring to. Where so in the Obi-Wan stuff, a week before the show starts, Disney, so Star Wars, post like, we know Reza, so the character, that black woman character, is going to receive a lot of racist backlash, so she has to get ready for that. And everybody's like, why would she? It's a show about Obi-Wan Kenobi. So and that's why we all went like, ooh, that sounds weird if they say that. And the way the tweet is formulated is, we can't wait for Reza to tell her story. I'm like, okay, so whose show is it now? And so it turns out it was exactly what we fear, which means instead of having a show about Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's a show about Reza. Fine, call it Reza.
Right.
Let's see if he does well. But then here comes the problem, is no one knows Reza. And that actress is put into the worst possible situation, because she has bad lines, a bad script, no chance to make something out of her character, outside of an angry person who is stronger than Darth Vader, and at the same time pisses off all the fans, because Obi-Wan is a weak old man, not even in touch with the Force, and she comes out as, I'm sure she's a lovely lady, but she's gonna come out as not in a good way in any shape or form, because you cannot be put in that situation and come out good.
Right.
So I feel for her, because she's in an impossible situation.
But you know what I don't understand, and that's basically what you're already saying, is like, why remove something and replace
Exactly.
it? Why not build your own? Like, why are we in a time where strong women are trying to be men, try to
Right.
act like men?
So,
why is
and
not?
I want to go back to the point I was making with the fisherman. Right. So you can either teach a man to fish, or you can give him a fish. When there's a fight, there's two ways to win a fight. You can make yourself better, or you can remove the competition.
Right.
Right? And that's constraint versus objective and all that stuff. We are entering a phase where what people want is equality of outcome. So,
Which is a very communist idea.
well, first of all, it's a very communist idea. But the problem too is what it means. It means removing opposition. So it doesn't mean for example, CEO makes $10 million a year. Right. I make 100. Right. Equality of outcome is not going to be, I need to make $10 million a year, because we can't all make $10 million a year. Equality of outcome is he's going to have to make 100,000.
Right.
Because you're removing opposition. When you remove your opposition, you are not raising to the level at what they wish. They're coming down to yours. Mm-hmm. So you cannot create through equality of outcome. And this is why you see in this war that is going on against the nerd culture is they are incapable of creating anything. They come up with shitty script every time. All they can do is remove the opposition. So what do? They take those older white men heroes that have a fan base, try to trick the fan base into following them while destroying them, removing them, and putting someone else in their place. The problem is they're not raising the level of that character. They're just lowering everybody to theirs. So that lady is not going to be able to make it because her character is shit because she never had the time to develop it.
Yeah.
So what you see happening is they are not trying to get inclusion. They are not trying to have representation. What they're trying to do is to kill the nerd culture because they don't like it, because it's mostly older white men, not all, of course, but if you look the comic books starting in the 70s, 80s, so that means that most of the fans are late 30s, 40s like me, stuff like that. You're going to see a lot of white guys in that, white people, because that industry, it's not to say there's not a lot of black kids that love comic books, don't get me wrong. But the fans they're making fun of, when they call racist and everything, they talk about white fans. Even the girl who played Captain Marvel went to say, I don't care about what 4-year-old white men have to say about my role. Because she knows exactly who she's attacking.
And that's a direct attack, yeah. I mean,
if you go to Comic-Con, you see a lot of, unfortunately, 30, 40-year-old white guys. But those are the ones that spend the most money on the nerd culture, let's be honest.
But outside of that, like, if they all love the diversity that comic books already gave, what is exactly the problem that, you know what I mean, like, it attracts who it attracts? Like, they should make the movies like they would always make it, about morals, about...
But that's if they're trying to create something, which is not what I think they're doing. I think what they're doing is killing the host.
Right.
I think they think that the nerd culture should not be as successful and make as much money as it does, and therefore should be killed, should be put to their level. There is a war against excellence. There is a war against...
they're milking it a bit too, though, and that's also a thing that
right, no, because they have to sell. No. I think they're milking it because they're selling it to corporations. Corporation wants to milk it. What I think corporations are failing to see right now is that they are not milking it. They are killing the host. They are bleeding it dry.
Right.
And that's the difference between milking. Milking you can do for life. They're not milking it. They're bleeding it dry because I think deep down the goal is not to milk the nerd culture. The goal is to kill it.
Right.
There is a war on competence in the US. And the nerd culture showed its competence by being worth billions of dollars to the Marvel and making good movies. So they are out there to kill it. I don't think they're there to milk it. I think they're, as a parasite, they're there to bleed it dry until it dies. And then they will be happy. Because we should not have that in the first place. You know how where you saw that? This was the Soviet youth, at the time Russian youth, starting the communist movement and all that, the Bolsheviks youth. This is what you saw. They didn't try to raise to a certain level. They wanted everybody down at their level. That's what communism is when it takes people to the top, we're not going to raise there. We're going to bring everybody down.
Yeah,
you have two ways of winning a fight.
Average in that sense of equal.
Which is of course complete bullshit because that's not how it works. There's always going to be hierarchies, but you get the idea. Yeah. There is two ways of winning a fight. You can make yourself better, or you can come down.
Yeah.
You can make people come down to your level, and that is what we see more and more and more. When it touches my culture, the nerd culture, I don't like it.
Well, you know what I found even very scary as well is that movies have such a big impact on our culture.
Especially the American culture. Like the American culture is movie culture. I think that's why the COVID response also was what it was, because it belonged into a movie, so everybody jumped on it.
Yeah, that was the point that you made to me the other day in the car, and I thought that was so interesting because we don't really read that much books anymore, or at least like, especially my generation below me, they barely even study from books. Yeah. Like they have iPads in school.
They take their all the information from a screen.
From a screen. So, and even a movie is almost too long because they watch snippets, they have TikTok, everything has to be like this. The whole culture is...
a movie is too long,
Yeah, but even like they get their information out of movies.
You know how long it took me to read Lord of the Rings?
But it's if they change that whole movie industry, like they live in that digital world, the impact it has on the generation, especially below me, is insane.
But and I think that's the point.
Even on the older generation, by the way, because they're like people watch a lot of TV. They have all their
all the information comes from a screen.
That shocked me the most when we went to the US a few times. I was like,
TV is always on.
TV is always on. Like I don't come from that culture. Like at all. I still don't watch TV. We haven't even turned this TV on once. I never watch TV, also no movies, but that's why it's
okay, you get it from YouTube. Like, you're going to get it from somewhere. No, this is the culture we live in. Yeah,
I mean, like,
I know.
Even Europe compared to the US, like the US, they watch a lot of TV, but they watch the you can tell that
TV shows. Yeah.
No, but even in the way they speak, at first I thought when I spoke to like in the US and stuff like that, I thought they were having like, it's like, why are you guys also like, it feels like you guys talking like a movie script compared to how I'm used to communication.
Well, yeah, but you're also Dutch. So.
I'm also Dutch, but like it shocked me the influence of movies on that culture.
I don't think Americans see
not as an offense at all. I don't mean it as an offense. It's just
okay. So when you say that, you just made it an offense. Like, you know, when you say someone, I don't mean to insult you, that means you just did. So I don't think they felt offended up until the moment you say I don't mean it as an offense, because now everybody's like,
no.
Did you mean it as an offense?
Well, then you have to cut it out.
Yeah, there you go. No. But I think that's kind of the point to all this is they don't want to make those movies, so they're killing the industry. I think, as we were saying, like the effect on Hollywood, the movies, on the American culture, is supreme. You see them freaking out about Elon Musk wanting to get Twitter? I think it's the same thing. I think they see the nerd culture and it has to go. Because those are not the people they want to see there. They don't want to see, especially older white men, in charge of anything, so they have to be removed. So I don't think they're going for inclusion. I don't think they're going for representation. I don't think they like Star Wars. I don't think they like Marvel and everything. For them, it's just a product. And I do believe deep down the system is trying to kill that culture and put it back where it belongs, which is over there. Like just they did to Steve Rogers, Captain America, where he finishes the movie and he's 80 years old and is in the back and where he should be. You know, like relegated down, which is what they're doing to the Obi-Wan character. He's a old man, depressed, a fool who should be back, which is weird because that's not who he is in the first Star Wars movie. So how they reconcile the two, no one knows. But it doesn't matter because they don't think that far. Because they don't care. What they want to do, they want to kill the character so that they can prop up the Reza character. And they're selling it to corporations who are dumb enough to think this is going to work by making it saying inclusion, all the right word, representation, where it's none of that. And all those minorities are just jumping on it, going like, oh, look, we are the star of this, or we are the star. No, you're not. They are killing the industry. It will not survive. All the fans are living that. I don't watch the new Marvel movies. I don't watch the Star Wars. I've not watched one of the Star Wars shows.
And
I won't, by the way.
You know what I found sad as well? Because Yaya, your daughter, you guys always had this cool bond where you guys would go watch movies together. You would pass on the values that made you, and how you grew up. You pass it on to her. And I saw always you guys like, you know,
we're always talking about
you guys would always talk about it and have so much joy together. Like, remember that movie? We were there, and this and this. It created such a cool jump from your generation into hers, and that slowly but surely you can even see that she doesn't enjoy it as much because
she doesn't want to see the movies.
No, and she sees also the difference, which I think is great because at least
because she knows the character. But she knows the character. When she sees the disrespect on a Luke Skywalker, he goes against everything she was. She's like, I don't get it. Why are you doing this? This is supposed to be a character that you love, and you're turning it into a fucking joke.
Right, and I think it also creates that split even more between like that old and that new nerd culture, because she doesn't like it. She's like,
but she's someone so invested. She cried at the end of the second Avenger movies, the Endgame.
And I think a lot of people connect to some loved ones or some friends or through that culture. And it's just sad to kill it like that, because you do affect people's culture, family. Like,
Look, but that's
like,
that tweet about like we are preparing the actress for the racist backlash. So you're already attacking your fan base a week before the show comes out.
Right.
You're already
Right.
saying you should not be here.
Right. But it's
You should not be here. We made Star Wars. The only reason there is Star Wars is because we poured money into it, bought the books, bought the comic books, and follow it. You don't even know the stuff. You're just showing up there as a tourist, destroy the stuff, piss on it, let it on fire, and on top of it, insult us because we don't want to see Obi-Wan Kenobi as a depressed, frail, beaten up old man, not even in touch with the Force anymore, because you have some ideals of representation.
No, and it is also sad because it was from the core, it was truly inclusive, and now you're even destroying that purity of that was naturally already in that community. And I also think that a lot of people will say like, it's just a movie. Well, the books when
and it was just 2 weeks for COVID.
Right, but it's also like that, by the way, and the influence that books had on people, on cultures, on everything. It changed the world, right?
No, but
movies changed the world as well, and
no, but it goes further than that. It goes further than that, and this is why I fight so much on equal opportunity, like with, Strongfit, like teaching versus outcome, because the same mentality applied to is just 2 weeks. Let's just stay home for 2 weeks, it's fine. Let's give the government that power. What could happen? What could happen? They destroy the world for 2 years.
Right.
The lab leak theory, which I've made 2 podcasts about, where I got blasted saying, you don't know what you're talking about. I was like, I think it would be a good idea to know where the virus comes from so that we don't get the next stuff. Like, my concern was, first of all, that one, so we're not stuck at home for 2 years. By the way, given booster shots to 5-year-old, even though the efficacy is under 20%, like this was what I was afraid of. It's like, are you sure you want to give the government and the pharmaceutical industry the power to have mandated vaccines that are not even that effective, since their efficacy is so low and proven to be under 50% even for big parts of the population? It's like, is that what you want? But it goes one step further. The lab leak theory, where from the beginning we're like, there's a chance it comes out of the Wuhan lab, right? Turns out most of the top level immunologists were saying that. And then 2 days later, they were told to shut up and say that it cannot come from a lab. All this has been proven. There's all paper trail now and all that stuff. The problem, and then everybody was like, oh, who cares anyway, it's here. Right, what about the next one? Do you know that in June of 2020, so exactly 2 years ago, the NIH was given $10 million to study monkeypox?
Right.
How weird is that? Do you know who else was studying monkeypox for the last 2 years? The Wuhan lab of virology. The same one who most likely, by mistake, freed a certain virus. Right. They've been studying it. So the scary part about that, about the monkeypox virus that they're studying, is that they claim they could not find any of it in China, which is true, but all you have to do is go to Nigeria. It's not that far. So they made it synthetically. They created it from scratch. They created that virus, that monkeypox virus, from scratch in a Wuhan lab because they couldn't find it in China. Again, you just have to head to Nigeria, you take a scrub, you're done. That's all you need to do. It's recurrent, it's endemic, so that means it's always there somewhere, so you can find it anywhere. They decided to create it from scratch. What does it matter? Because it's a close cousin to smallpox. $10 million given to the NIH, Wuhan lab start to study the monkeypox. 2 years later, we get an outbreak. Right, so if we don't care where COVID comes from, what happens for the next accident? Because they're studying MERS, that is 40% lethal in human instead of 0.1%, like shit like that. That's the problem with like, oh, who cares, it's just a. Yeah, because you say who cares because it's not you. The people that say who cares, they don't care because it's not their culture. They did not grow up worshipping Star Wars or all that stuff. But guess what happens next? They come to you next. Yeah. It'll be your stuff because they cannot create. Remember, they bring everybody to their level. Right. They cannot create. What has the woke crowd created? Give me shows, give me anything that created that was a good idea. They're not creators, they're destructors. This is a Bolshevik idea that we're trying again, except from a different culture.
maybe it's gonna sound very hippie, but it's like if you come with a hatred approach to something like that, it's not gonna work. Like
you're gonna destroy it, or it's gonna work exactly for the Bolsheviks. So a Bolshevik was trying to talk to Dr. Freud and say, I believe there will be a bloodbath at first, but in the end, everything will work out. I'm paraphrasing. And Freud responded, I believe you're half right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, and that's exactly that. Is you saw them, that Bolshevik youth, they came and they just kill everybody. Yeah. They just destroyed stuff because it's very easy to destroy, and you bring everybody to your level of misery. Misery loves company. Yeah. That's what they're all doing. They're like, we don't like the world because they're fucking 20, and who likes the world at 20? And they want to just torch the place, but they're not creating anything. They're not offering anything. Like those older white men, they all hate. It's like, who do you think keeps the electricity going?
Well,
the air conditioning you love so much, the Wi-Fi that you need to talk to your friends on Twitter with, who do you think keeps that up?
Yeah.
That hatred of older white men that turns into hatred of men, of white men that turns into hatred of men. How far do you want to take that?
Well, there is a hatred towards men going on slowly but surely, though.
Well, you guys say slowly, but imagine if your side sees it, because we've been saying it for a while. Imagine if your side starts to see it. Like,
right.
This is not building. It's easy to destroy, but once things are destroyed, you have to rebuild them. And this is what I see with our culture, is they are succeeding into destroying an entire thing. Star Wars is pretty much gone. Marvel is following next because people don't go see the new movies. The new fans don't care.
You have to understand. You will never get loyal fans like that. First,
there was the Star Wars fans
base.
waited over 20 years to see a sequel.
Yeah, that's crazy.
20 years, but they kept the thing going through comic books, and books keep buying.
But
they kept building a universe.
All the languages from the movies, and they write it out and whatever. Like,
so
the most committed
some
fans,
people speak Elvish from like Lord of the Rings. Those are the fans that they had, that they're losing because of the new Amazon series. Those are people that speak Elvish.
Yeah,
that's how committed, fucking insane they are. Not even, I think they're crazy. Well, I'm not even that much of a nerd. But they're
committed. Let's put it this way. They're intensity.
Do you think those new fans that are doing that new woke shit, do you think they're committed to that?
Well, and
they don't give a shit. They don't care. Well, it's gone in 5 minutes.
The thing is that
they don't build anything.
You know what? I wonder what that woke thing really is, because is it about like we all love each other, we're all equal in the sense of, you know what I mean? Like, is it all about like?
It's, you know what this is you saw that through the difference of feminism. You have the first wave, second wave of feminism, the Camille Paglia, which if I'm something is I'm a first, second wave feminist in that sense, which was like equal opportunity. We want women to be able to do their own, to be given the chance to do their own thing, which I think we can all agree to. And now,
I think everyone in this world will agree to that women, people of color, like doesn't matter which gender you are into, they all deserve the same.
Right. Camille Paglia says it many times. What she wants to see women as Amazons, as Viking queens. And I'm like, fuck yeah.
Right.
It's exactly, that's why I love CrossFit, because he's making women into badasses with a lot of muscle that are strong and fit.
Yeah, and the way she's, like, some of her lectures and her book and stuff like that, the way she talks about, like, how women should be able to be strong as women. I think that
not as a man, as a woman.
And that's
exactly.
That's I think what a big problem is nowadays too. Is like women try to be men, but they don't see that there's such a big strength in being a woman.
But that's because that's more complicated. So what happened? Yes, but what happened is when you get to the fourth wave feminism, which was first wave, right now, where we are now, is what this is about. This is about removing men, the competition from the workplace.
Yeah.
And so replacing men in that sense. So they're not asking for representation or equality. That's not true, because otherwise they would try to be plumbers and electricians. We know it's not that. Is what happened is capitalism applied to women. Is so the second way was like women should be Amazons and should be allowed to work. But then after that, you started to go okay, so now we're in the workplace. How do we do better? You have two choices. You can either make yourself better, you can remove the competition, and that's what the fourth wave is.
Right.
It's at removing the competition from the workplace.
Right.
So what does that mean? That means removing men, because that's the competition as a group, right?
Right.
So that's why you see that gender battle is there, is we're not going to get better at what we do. But what we're going to do is we're going to kill men off. So we're going to make them less masculine, less threatening. Yeah? But of course, this is applying all sides of society. But the original intent was to remove men from the workforce, which is happening, by the way. They are winning. Like in college now, it's 60-40% women, and it's going towards 65-35. So very soon there's going to be 2 women for 1 man in college.
Well, how do you think that is hurting women? Because I think it's harmful to women to think like that, even. I don't think it makes women better. 2
problems with that aspect. First of all, women do not choose engineering, STEMs, and stuff like that. They don't like it. Women love people. Men love things. So men are, if you look at the Scandinavian countries where they are given the chance to do whatever they want, women choose essentially people things. So nurses, teachers, taking care of people. Men choose things stuff. So making cars, electricity, engineering, math. It's essentially masculine subjects in that sense. And this is when you let men and women choose, you see a bigger difference in the Scandinavian countries than you see in these countries.
And the Scandinavian women, the ideas and stuff that I hear from them, they're fucking strong women there.
No, but plus the equality that they have in Sweden, men women, the pay gap is very small, but that's because they all have their own thing, but their own thing is not in the same level.
Right.
There's a greater disparity in jobs in the Scandinavian countries than there is in the Western countries.
You know what I find funny is that Sweden, for example, had the best COVID response and the less.
Right, that's okay. But let me finish this. So if you have 2-to-1 ratio of women to men, then you're going to have a 2-to-1 ratio of women getting college degrees toward a specific field. That means you're going to have less and less engineers and scientists coming up in the rank of the Western culture. But they're going to have to come from somewhere. So we're going to have to go toward the East, India, China, stuff like that. So first of all, that's going to be the first stop. So we're going to lose our edge, or the Western world is going to suffer because of that. And on top of it, women don't date down. They date across or up. Women hate a man that makes less than them. Like we see it time and time and time again. It's always a problem. If a man makes less than a woman, tension arises. It happens a lot. And it's not a criticism, it's just we see it time and time and time again. So now that you have so many women in college and less men, what do you think is going to happen? Right, so those men are going to have to find jobs that pay just as much, but we live in a corporate world that pays for executives much higher than anybody else. Right, so you're going to have that issue. Even in college, where a lot of women choose their mate for at least a while, 2-to-1. So that means there's going to be 2 women for 1 guy. So that means that the guy that gets chosen has more choices. So now he's going to start having sex with all the women, but not go toward relationships. So you're going to keep the men into a man-child position, where the women are going to have to fight each other to get access to a commodity that is getting rarer and rarer. Well, that's going to go well. So now we're going away from your typical Western type of relationship towards something that is more. It's a different sexual norm now.
Yeah.
So we're going to start messing with that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Just by doing this now. So removing men from the workforce is such a short-minded mentality. So that's what you see with really the fourth wave feminism. Is if you listen to them talk, it's like, yes, but me. It used to be a Camille Bacclia to say, I want women as a group to be Amazons. To now the fourth wave feminist saying, I want what's better for me. Yeah, but what's better for you is a very short-term mentality. That is going to screw all other women around. So now you have to start, you hear women saying, well, toxic masculinity is a problem. We don't know what toxic femininity is. But anyway, toxic masculinity is a problem. Men and women do that. Yeah. So it wasn't enough to say men were responsible for toxic masculinity. Now some women always. Right. Because if you start to remove people from the workforce that are your competition, it starts with men. But it won't stay there. Yeah. It's going to be the next group, and the next group, and the next group, like he always does.
And at some point, they will come for a certain type of woman. They don't.
Of course, they will.
It's going to bite them back in the ass.
Like the new generation, the 20-year-olds, your generation, they're coming at you guys next.
Yeah.
Because
sure.
They are a bit older, 35, 40. They don't have what they wanted out of life. They're going to come for you guys next.
Yeah, but I also think it's like they shame men into something that you don't want. Like that whole toxic masculinity constantly. You can't shame men like that constantly.
No, but
like the whole thing about the sperm count going down 1% a year, like that should scare people as well.
Testosterone going down.
Testosterone,
No,
sorry.
both are. Testosterone is a 1%.
Like that is scary. That means that slowly but surely we're basically like
removing masculinity out of men.
Yeah, but also like that means that also they're less fertile. You mean like all of that?
Right.
And we are hurting men.
Yes.
In that, but we're not just hurting men. We're hurting then our father, our future sons, our brothers. Like
Yes, but you know who you're hurting? You're hurting your competition.
well, and also the next generation.
It doesn't matter. In the meantime, you're hurting your competition, which
Right.
is all that matters. If you have a short-term mentality, that is not how you see things. Like, I don't care what men do. What I want is now. What I want is you here. What I want is a man that is this, a man that is that. But at the same time, there was a woman saying like, all women should aim toward a guy who's what they call a high value man. He should treat you, he should take care of his body, he should make that much money, he should treat you like a queen. Because if you just go for an okay man, then he's going to treat you okay. And nobody is worse okay. You all are worth more than that.
No.
Plus d'abord, math tells you you're wrong. Math tells you you're wrong. If there's but look, there's some men that you choose. Wait. Some women you should choose. Some men you should choose. Some men you should not choose. All women have the right to those men.
Yeah.
Okay, the math doesn't work.
Right.
It's 50-50. So the math doesn't work. I'm just saying.
Right. And you know what pisses me off? It's like we're all telling women that it's okay to be who you are. Yes, it's okay to be who you are. That doesn't mean that you don't have to improve yourself. You know what I mean? Like you
No, but the arrogance of saying like you deserve a certain type of man. Says who?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that says who, and who decides.
What do you bring to the table?
Wait, what do you bring to the table? That's a very good
No, plus the
question.
math doesn't work.
No, and it's also like we picking one standard. That doesn't like what a high value man is to one person doesn't mean it has to be a high value man to another person.
But by the way, by definition, high value means there's a hierarchy of men.
Yeah.
So high value will always go up. If everybody chooses them, then there's a high value within the high value.
How like
it cannot
insane
work.
Is it? Because
It's
that means
insane,
that there's a hierarchy in men, but there's no hierarchy in women.
Yeah, all women should have but there's 50-50, right? Men and women. Yet all women should have access to the 10% of men.
Yeah, it's insane.
You guys are not good at math. And you're force wave feminists out there, you suck at math, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, but at the same time, like women right now, like the whole thing, I'm gonna say it again, like it's all right to work on yourself. Like everyone is good the way they are. Yeah, sure, but it doesn't mean that you can't improve. You know,
that's why I'm trying to get stronger.
Right. I also always try to get better. Like a man doesn't just have to accept everything that you are and am. No, you have to also make an effort to be better. You know what I mean? Always, right?
Yeah.
You can't teach that to young women. That's a very, very bad idea in general, I think.
We're going into a hill so fast. But honestly, I think that fight is lost. I think this is a decline of Western civilization. So I honestly think the fight is lost, honestly.
But
the barbarians are at the gate. All empire fall. And I think ours, all empire fall sooner or later. Ours is falling.
You know.
But in the meantime, I can make Strongfit as the best I can make it.
Right.
And so my goal is why I talk about the principle so much of that, because I believe it should be about equal opportunity. So what I want is to bring a chance, an opportunity for people to understand things more deeply so they can apply it better for themselves.
Yeah.
That's
I was
what
going to say, like, it's so funny we started with like describing Strongfit and we're an hour later deep into the problem of society and but in a way, you know what I love so much is like the principles that you teach, the tools that you give to people. You can apply it to everything. It's not training, it's life, honestly. Like the first time we talked before we were together when I was just your athlete as a peasant. No, but all the stuff you
Still a peasant.
women only date up, you know what I mean?
Yes, they do.
I got it wrapped up here.
Got a husband? I'm fine. Yeah.
Is that they apply to life. It's
Right,
great.
but the-
like tension over position is the deepest stuff ever. It applies to everything in life. It's so
But you also
amazing.
know why, to me, it matters, the Obi-Wan stuff, is because that way of thinking gave us the 2 years of response to COVID, which I think we can all agree were not the correct ones by now.
Right.
I mean, hopefully we can agree on that. I'm not even sure we can agree on that, but I would say they were not the correct ones. That affected my life.
Right.
That could have easily, it didn't break Strongfit, but it easily could have.
Oh,
So
easy. Like
that response, that way of looking at the world almost broke the fitness industry.
right, but
So,
and it broke a lot of gyms.
Right.
Like a lot of people are in a lot of debt and trouble because of this. Like
right, so it
there
broke the
actually
gym,
are-
but it didn't make a dent on the obesity crisis. On the contrary, there's more obese people and less gym. That's what that way of thinking brought us. It brought us a worse,
Well, and we're not even talking about the rate of the depression and anxiety that went
well,
up.
not even
And
that.
not
but
even
yeah.
addictions, the suicide rate, all of that type of
Right,
stuff.
we're not even talking about that. What I know is that our response brought up anxiety and gyms down. So that way of thinking is impacting our life.
Right.
And the fitness industry, that's what I mean by that. So I want my hardest to come up with better ideas and better practical ways to help you run your gyms, because if we don't do that, we're all screwed. And that way of thinking is dangerous. So that's why equality of opportunity.
Right.
That's what matters.
I think so too, yeah.
Okay, we're 1 hour in. That's enough of a rant on this. Don't worry, more will be coming. In the meantime, we'll go masculine, feminine next week.
Oh, we were going from controversial to more controversial, basically. I don't know, even
Whatever.
at this stage,
I'm being shadow banned on YouTube
we're
anyway,
the
so
evil
who cares?
anyway, right?
Who cares? See you guys next week.
Ciao.